Done.
With, as you know, I have this long-running debate now with Milo Yiannopoulos. This is my big problem with Milo and his entire movement, is I think that Milo is not conservative. I don't think he knows anything about conservatism. I don't think he cares about the Constitution. He says this openly. I think that Milo cares about being a provocateur. And I'm sorry, a provocateur generation is only valuable in standing for things that are worthwhile. It is not, being a provocateur just for the sake of being a provocateur is worthless. Provoke in the name of something real and decent, and then I'll stand with you. Provoke in the name of just being a provocateur because you're violating taboos and you're a waste of my time.
Thank you.
For the record, that as anybody who has watched me for the past year knows, I am no fan of Milo's. I have not been a fan of Milo's. I find Milo appalling, and I have for well over a year. I've stayed silent on this latest stuff because, honestly, you don't kick a guy while he's down. But the fact is that Milo, what's happened with Milo actually says less about Milo than it does about the conservative movement that I find troubling, right? I think that, just to give you a few examples of stuff that Milo's done over the past year, in a few weeks ago, he suggested to a Muslim girl in an audience that she shouldn't be wearing a hijab in America. As a guy who wears a funny hat every day of the week, I think that's awful. Right? Milo is somebody who said that he called a Jewish journalist from BuzzFeed a thick as, what was it? It was a typical example of a sort of thick as pig shit media Jew. Right? Milo, on the day of my child's birth, sent me a meme of a black baby suggesting my kid was half black because I'm a cuck, because I'm not sufficiently supportive of Donald Trump. He's talked about how the alt-right is this wondrous milieu of intellectual decency and honesty, full of brilliant people, while openly acknowledging that the alt-right actually says that Western civilization and ethnicity are inherently connected. Right? He did all of this before all this stuff came down. So my only disappointment on all of this stuff is that, I think that conservatives should have said this is all bad stuff a long time ago. I don't think that it should have taken tape of Yiannopoulos saying that 30-year-olds having sex with 13-year-olds is great in order for people to say this was not great stuff. So if the only standard on the right is, we'll accept anyone who pisses off the left, our only standard is you can't say that it's good for 30-year-olds to have sex with 13-year-olds, I think we can have a little bit higher standards.
This is good. Ben, my girlfriend is a big Milo fan who hates you. How do I fix her?
First of all, have her watch a tape from Joe Rogan. You don't have to have her watch the him defending molesting people tape. But what I would say about Milo's shtick is that Milo is somebody who is very much driven by a desperate need for attention. I've been making very clear for years that I think that this leads him down some pretty dark roads into associations with some people who I think are very bad for conservatism. I don't think he has a thoroughgoing worldview other than just to be a troll and gain attention. And it doesn't, I'm not surprised a lot of Milo fans are not fans of mine because I've made very clear that I have an affirmative worldview that I stand up for, whereas I think that Milo can basically be classified as anti-left rather than as conservative per se. If you asked Milo, what would you do in government, it would all be stuff that was anti-left, I think. But I don't think he thinks about any of that stuff anyway. I don't think that Milo is a big reader. I don't think Milo is somebody who spends a lot of time with ideas. Now, it's not ripping on his intellect. I think Milo seems to be a smart guy. But again, he embraced some really terrible, awful people who did some pretty terrible, awful things in the last few years to make his name. And that's something that I have a deep and abiding disgust with.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything about that lately. So the answer is no, I won't be debating Milo. The reason I won't be debating Milo is because he's a coward. And the reason he's a coward is because 3 weeks ago, first of all, somebody, I think it was Dave Rubin plus Steven Crowder, they both offered to host a debate between me and Milo on the alt-right and Donald Trump. And Milo went totally silent. And then he blamed Breitbart News for telling him not to do it. A couple weeks later, he then said, fine, I'm willing to do it now. And he emailed me and he emailed Dave Rubin and he emailed all the people involved and he said, let's set this up. And within an hour, I had my assistant email back times, right? And he said within the next couple of weeks. No response. Nothing, right? He says, I'll get back to you. No response. For a week, for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks, right? And then I email him again, last week and a half ago, and I said, okay, well, I'm holding these dates open, and I'm not going to keep holding dates open, so are we doing this or not? No response. No response because he's chicken. Because he's chicken poop. Because he is a coward. He's a coward, he's an intellectual coward. It's very easy to go on campus and fight against Triggly-Puff social justice warriors with an IQ of 7. It's really not difficult. And it's also really not difficult to lie to college students about what is good and true because they haven't studied the issues. It's also not difficult to gain attention by doing silly stunts. And they're fun. I watch them. They're fun. But when you do those things and you then spoon feed on top of it alt-right white nationalism and pander to some of the worst people on earth and encourage college students to do the same, it's really terrible. I don't have to reiterate my criticisms of Milo here. Suffice it to say, he's intellectually shallow. The offer's off the table. I don't waste my time holding dates open for my intellectual inferiors who are too cowardly to debate me, to initiate conversations, then blame me for backing out of the debate that they back out of.
You immediately responded, yes, you gave dates, and then Milo basically dipped out. That says the truth as much as I know it. If you
no,
know more,
that's exactly right. And so, no, that's exactly right. And so, and then went around the country proclaiming that I had chickened out and trying to derive this rivalry with me that I could not care less about. Like Milo, I wish nothing but success to Milo based on the good things he does. I hope nothing but failure for him for bad things that he does, just like anybody else.
That's quite a wish.
And I'm not going to play Lucy in the football with him. I mean, he ducked out, he chickened out, and I mean, look, the fact is that even the fact I was willing to do it in the first place after he was tweeting pictures of me, a black baby on the day that my son was born because I'm a cuck, it was a bit generous, but now that I'm not gonna play that game. That's not my game.
And the thing is, I genuinely like both of you, and I think we could have done something really good. Milo's coming back in February. I think my guess is that the ground is a little too scorched.
Yeah, I'm not interested.
But yeah,
okay. Again, I'm not interested in doing the Charlie Brown Lucy routine so that he can go around the country proclaiming that he's brave after having chickened out.
Yeah, so. And for the record, when he comes in February, I'll
sure
say the exact same thing to him, and he can say
do his shtick. Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine.
And I'm not tall and nearly as dashing as him, of course, and I don't have the nice British.
Well, who is? I mean, without the British accent, by the way, Milo is basically just another ill-informed libertarian.
All right,
Milo.
He's definitely going to see this. So.
I know. So a lot of people who are just anti-SJW, anti-social justice warrior, but who aren't believers in racial inequality and racial disparity, who aren't advocates of racism and anti-Semitism, a lot of those people, they fell into the trap of thinking that they are allies with people like Vox Day and Richard Spencer and Jared Taylor. And there have been a couple of figures who have been very prominent in helping to mainstream the alt-right. One of these, unfortunately, is a guy who directed a lot of his sort of alt-right followers at me on Twitter and became very popular, Milo Yiannopoulos. So Milo is very popular. He's very popular because a lot of the stuff that he said on campus, a year ago about feminism, a lot of it is irreverent, and some of it is funny, and all of it is crazy and out of the box, and he says inflammatory things deliberately and all of this, okay? But Milo was very, very instrumental in mainstreaming the alt-right and treating the alt-right as an intellectual movement that ought to be respected and given its fair hearing. This was his shtick, right? His shtick was he was going to pander to the alt-right. He later came out and said, I separate off from the alt-right. They're not me. I have problems with the alt-right. But that didn't stop him from going on national television and talking up the alt-right and saying he just wanted to give them a fair hearing. Here he is on CNBC last year doing exactly this.
No, I mean, I've never identified as the alt-right. The press seems determined to crown me the queen of it. All I've done is give them a fair hearing in the press. I think that white identity and white nationalism is a little misleading. I think it's more accurate to say that the alt-right cares about Western supremacy rather than white supremacy. It cares about Western values. It cares about liberal, capitalist, Western democracy, democratic values, freedom, equality, that kind of thing. And it sees, various threats to those on various fronts.
Okay, so you see what he's doing here. Okay, Milo knows better than this, okay, because he's been dealing in these circles for a long time. He apparently used to call himself Milo Wagner, okay? Milo knows what he is doing here. And what he is doing here is he's broadening the definition of alt-right. It's very clever. He's broadening the definition of alt-right on national television to now encompass a larger group. And this serves two people, right? Or it serves two groups. It serves the alt-right itself, which now gets to claim a larger constituency. And it serves the left, which gets to lump in everybody who believes in Western civilization with people like Jared Taylor, Richard Spencer, and Vox Day. Here's Milo writing on the alt-right last year. This was the seminal piece that really brought the alt-right to public knowledge. There's a piece called The Establishment Conservatives' Guide to the Alt-Right. It was written by Milo along with a guy named Alan Bakari who wrote at Breitbart.com. This is about a month after I left Breitbart. And here's what Milo wrote. Quote, there are many things that separate the alternative right from old-school racist skinheads. Alternative right is a term coined by Richard Spencer. That is alt-right. Alt-right stands for alternative right. There are many things that separate the alternative right from old-school racist skinheads to whom they are often idiotically compared. But one thing stands out above all else, intelligence. Skinheads, by and large, are low-information, low-IQ thugs, driven by the thrill of violence and tribal hatred. The alternative right are a much smarter group of people, which perhaps suggests why the left hates them so much. Right? The left doesn't hate them because they're racist. The left hates them because they're dangerous. They're dangerously bright. This is all Milo, okay? This is Milo writing. The media empire of the modern-day alternative right coalesced around Richard Spencer during his editorship of Talkies magazine. In 2010, Spencer founded AlternativeRight.com, which would become a center of alt-right thought. Alongside other nodes of Steve Saylor's blog VDare and American Renaissance, alternative right became a gathering point for an eclectic mix of renegades who objected to the established political consensus in some form or other. You see what's happening here? Do you see how evil what's happening here is? Taking the philosophy, the evil philosophy of people like Jared Taylor and Richard Spencer and Vox Day. Milo wrote the foreword to Vox Day's book, okay? They're taking the political philosophy that Milo knows well and then broadening it out to suggest that it applies to everyone who wants to defend Western civilization. I want to defend Western civilization. I've spent my entire career defending Western civilization. I've spent my entire career defending the Declaration and the Constitution. My original break with Milo online actually came over, not over the Michelle Field stuff or the Trump stuff or any of that stuff. They deleted his account, so you should be able to look it up. But it came originally over Milo suggesting that constitutional conservatism was dead and ought to be replaced by the alternative right. Okay, that's where the break came on Twitter. So what he did here by mainstreaming the alt-right was create the feeling that they were a burgeoning movement. It wasn't just Milo, there were other people doing it too.